the Off the Bench presents Batter's Box, brought to you by Brotherhood Sports Apparel. I'm here joined with Kyle Slicker, Anarchy Pro. Kyle, how you doing?
Pretty good. How about yourself?
I'm fantastic. Anything new and exciting going on in 2025 for you?
Just more dad life.
I got-
More dad life and more softball.
that sounds good. Well, I mean, I really appreciate you joining us. This is the first of hopefully many series that we have here at the Batter's Box. We're going to be doing the individual videos. We did a batting session earlier, just moments ago, and but I really appreciate you being able to take the time of your busy day. I know it's time is definitely not a luxury we necessarily always have as parents, so it is what it is. I appreciate you taking the time, so thank you.
Absolutely.
So you being an Anarchy Pro, especially for one of the few that we have in the state of Michigan, how does that come about? I mean, you the one approaching them? Are they approaching you? How does that work out? How did you actually become an Anarchy Pro?
So my story is a little bit more unique on how I became a pro. A lot of guys just have success and they get signed deals. I actually met the owners of Anarchy years ago. So I swung their product before they ever released in the ASA market back in like 2016. So they released in 2017. 2016, some guys came into Michigan or guys from Michigan had prototype bats of their stuff. So I swung it and loved it for ASA. At the time, they didn't have U-trip bats. So I kind of made it my mission after that was because obviously back then I was a little DE player, maybe C, I don't remember. So it's kind of my mission to eventually get a bat deal with somebody.
Mhm.
So I took the approach of I reached out to companies to be like a quote unquote factory hitter.
Right.
That's what we used to call it back in the day.
Okay.
And then I started reaching out to Anarchy ownership because I had met them. It was like 2018-ish. They came to Waterford actually, where I live, to league ball because the guy that I was friends with that swung Anarchy,
Hmm.
they came to hang out with him. So talked to the owners. Two of them were there, and basically from then on, I would bug them every few months. Hey, you guys need. I was just trying to be a rep at the time, and they were still so small that they didn't even really have reps yet. They just kind of Smasher Sports is a distributor of
Right.
Anarchy, so they just kind of used Smasher Sports reps to do their stuff. Um, so I kept bugging, and eventually when Leaf Nemo took over, he finally signed me on as a. At the time, we were called captains, so
Hmm.
there was 12 of us as like reps and captains. And then it was my first year in the conference as well, so they also signed me on to be a pro. So I was a pro and one of our lead reps, and ever since I've been kind of just trying to move up the ladder, and now obviously last year I had a signature bat, and
Hmm.
this year I get my second signature bat.
That's huge. I mean,
Yeah,
congratulations on that.
thank you.
It's got to be from a goal aspect. It's got to be definitely one of those check marks, right?
For as far as personal goals, it's absolutely. I definitely I've had set my sights on eventually getting to the point where I was playing the best in the country, and then after that, I wanted to work my way into getting a signature bat or helping design a bat or just something,
Something.
and ended up getting my first signature last year.
So I mean, uh, how does that work out too? How much like I guess say do you have in terms of that design or how that bat looks and so forth?
So, being a smaller company, we actually have a lot of say in the design of our bats. The couple pros that got signature bats, um, we basically got to pick everything. We got to pick the name, we got to pick the colors, the graphics. For my bat, I picked I picked the name, and then we started working with graphics, and then I would send them to the art guy, and the art guy would send me back something, and if it looked good, sweet. If we wanted tweaks, we would tweak a color here, tweak something there,
Mhm.
and that's how we ended up with the first edition of the Fenrir.
So I mean, you really then do have somewhat of you definitely have a hand in it. That's pretty cool.
Absolutely.
That's a different layer of coolness
Yeah.
rather than just having your name on the
Name
bat.
stuck on a bat.
That's actually pretty sweet.
Yeah.
So obviously we've got the 2025 season coming up. We went through kind of batting wise, and if you want to be able to highlight what Kyle's necessarily approaches for batting, you can go ahead and tune into one of the other videos that we've got posted for that session. But one thing I have seen you, especially when you're posting personally from your workouts and your preparation for that from a physical aspect. What would you say? We'll get to your workouts in just a moment, but what would you say if you're to pull out one key point or component of it that is essential in terms of preparing your body for the 2025 season or getting ready for the season?
Truthfully, for me, I think a break is the most essential part. A lot of these young guys like to just keep going. Like they get done with Worlds and then they start playing dome ball. Like up here, obviously, dome is common for us. Start playing dome ball. They go to drop in every week. They're hitting all the time. You're never giving your body a break, and we're torquing our backs so much during the season. Like, and you're only doing it one way. So truthfully, like for me is rest. The biggest priority for me as soon as the season's over is just relaxing and doing other stuff other than softball.
So, I mean, resting obviously great. How much time would you say you take?
Probably about a month. I start back up in probably December.
December. Okay. And then when December comes around, when Kyle hits the gyms or start hit the weights, what does that look like?
As far as gym routine,
Yeah.
so my gym routine's super basic. I stick to the push, the pull, um, legs, and then core. Uh, I I I'm relatively new to the gym, truthfully. I'm probably like 2 years into like being committed to the gym, and I still learn stuff from TikTok and Facebook Shorts and maybe a gym buddy giving me tips on
Mhm.
what I should be doing. So my routine changes kind of often, but I truly I stick to the basics though. I have a push day, a pull day, legs and core, and and then for cardio I just do bike because my knees are pretty bad, so
Mhm.
I can't sit there and run for hours.
Okay.
So I get on a bike and I'll do like half an hour on a bike,
Mhm.
um, just to get the heart rate up.
Is there a specific workout that you personally have seen? Like, okay, I'm getting results from this, and it's not just for results from a physical nature or from like how your appearance, but I'm getting actually production results from this exercise. I can tell that I want to do this more consistently.
Uh, that's kind of hard to tell. I would if I had to say one exercise, I'd probably say Bulgarian squats. There's such a it's such a hard squat, and you're obviously balancing on one leg, kind of,
Mhm.
and so you're working other smaller muscles
Mhm.
while you're doing the squat. And my entire leg is sore after a Bulgarian squat. Whereas just normal squats, it's typically just my hamstrings that are kind of on fire. But also after Bulgarian, it's my glutes, my hands, my quad, everything is sore after I do a good round of Bulgarian squats.
And I'd argue that's also one of those where form is usually critical.
I mean, form is pretty critical for all the workouts.
Right.
If you're not doing it right, like if you're someone at the gym trying to do as much weight as you can, you're there's a good chance you're not doing it right, and you're just trying to you're ego lifting everything
Mhm.
instead of taking the time. Maybe you look a little bit weaker to your friends, but
Mhm.
you're doing it right and you're hitting more muscles if you're doing the exercise right with lower weight instead of maybe just one muscle group because you're trying to do as heavy as you possibly can with the complete wrong form. And that's you're more prone to injury when you start doing all the wrong form
I
stuff.
was gonna say it's not a matter of if, but a matter of when is that injury gonna
Yeah,
happen?
absolutely.
Because and that's the big reason behind the form is to help prevent injuries and be able to maximize your production from that weight as well as get the performance you're looking to get from it.
Right.
So with the workouts coming on, I want to pivot a little bit to go down a path, and it's not necessarily a bad path, but it's really a state of softball. I mean, you've been playing this. How long have you been playing softball?
I started tournament ball. I would have been 23. So 2000 and what year is it? 25. So
25.
2013.
Okay.
I started tournament ball back then playing E, and it was a very different game back then too.
I mean, and it's crazy because I would argue that you can see it's like a palpable line that you can see where softball really changed in the state of Michigan, and I'd argue that line really happened when Liberty closed. You can see that it drastically changed. I'm not saying there were other factors that came into play with that, but I'd argue that when Liberty closed, that was a big driver that of softball within Southeast Michigan, that it just altered not only the softball community, but some of the outreach we have to some of the fringe players and new players as well. What is your perspective on that, or where currently softball is, especially with all the different leagues and tournament ball?
So I definitely agree with you. Is when Liberty closed, Michigan softball took a turn for the worse. We never really had an upper division as far as like when you and I have been playing. I know everyone talks about when A and B used to be huge all over the country, but ever since we've been playing, we've never really had an upper level. We just had a really large E, pretty big D,
D. Yeah.
and then it was still always like 8 C teams at the most.
Mhm.
Um, but when Liberty closed, it was I don't even know where all these people went. Like,
That's the crazy. I was talking about it with a couple other guys. Like, we're wondering where did these players go to? And there's a bunch. I mean, especially with the amount of fields he had, there was a ton of lanes. Where did everyone go?
right. I don't know if it was the camaraderie at Liberty because obviously there was drama there all the time because
Yeah.
everyone's getting drunk. But it was everyone's there. You had your show fields. People were at the bar hanging out right on the show field watching games. Uh, I have to think though, like a lot of people are still playing because they love to play ball.
Mhm.
So it was kind of enamoring when everyone's like it seemed like we lost like 50% of our of our E and D division after Liberty closed, and I have no idea where they all went.
Well, and it didn't even help out the upper divisions either. I mean, that's one thing that you're still seeing a struggle to this day of trying to fill C teams and getting those upper level, tournaments to be filled with more than just the same 4 or 5, maybe 6 teams if you have that many within the state. So, what is your what do you think is the potentially the obstacle of getting to that point? I mean, there's classifications which we'll get to in just a moment, but what would you say is the biggest obstacle for that piece?
Uh, I think it's on the players. I think players and the attitudes now have driven a lot of sponsors away,
Mm.
and sponsors is a huge part of upper ball because you're always traveling. When I say upper, even C,
Mhm.
you're always going to Ohio right now
Right.
because everything is in Ohio. We have a few in here up here, but you're traveling, so you got to get a hotel for at least one night. You're going down there. Sometimes you might have to take a Friday off of work, and there's very few sponsors left.
Mhm.
Like Taffin, Craig Labor is a great sponsor. I know plumbers have had good sponsorships in the past, but like there isn't much else.
Mhm.
I don't hear about all these D&E teams having fully funded seasons. Whereas when we first started at Liberty, there was D&E teams with fully funded seasons.
Mhm.
Maybe they paid $100 for their pay to play type of stuff.
Yeah, but it was minimal. It was minimal.
Right. And now like the sponsors don't want anything to do with it because people are so ungrateful. Like it's on us as players.
Mhm.
We have to wake up and realize these people that are sponsoring us to play this rather dumb game,
Mhm.
they're not getting anything from this. They're doing it because they love the game.
Right.
They love the game, not the BS that happens outside of the game.
Right.
So when all the BS starts to add up, the people that love the game will leave the game
Mhm.
because it's not the game anymore.
Right.
It's just it's high school.
It, I mean, I 100% agree, and that's the unfortunate part is I feel like we've taken that for granted, and the unfortunate mindset of those sponsors are always going to be there. You're right. I mean, at the end of the day, especially after businesses that have gone through COVID, gone through some of the financial struggles from the recession on, and a lot of them from COVID still haven't fully recovered. And why are they going to toss money away to an endeavor that's not necessarily going to benefit them?
Correct.
And I can get that from the business side, on the business sense. So, what do you think? Is there a? I imagine there's not really a black and white answer to get a more sponsors or be able to attract more sponsors. Do you think there is a path, or what recommendation would you be giving to some of these younger teams?
If you have sponsors, even if it's small amounts to start, because that's how a lot of sponsors start, give you $500, and then oh, they loved what you did, or they loved how the jerseys came out, or they loved the team. So next year they give you $1,500. Like the smaller sponsors, that's how they start getting to be slightly bigger sponsors. So the best thing I could say for all these young guys is start respecting not only each other, but the people that are giving you this money to play,
Mhm.
regardless of how much it is. I don't care if it was $250. Somebody gave the team some money. So why not tell them thank you? Why not go up and shake their hand at an event? Why not go to their business and spend some money? Like if it's a bar or whatever, go to dinner there.
Mhm.
Like there's so many like food industries or food restaurants or whatever bars that will throw money at a league team or whoever it is, and that team never shows up to that industry for anything. Why not? You're gonna eat somewhere. What go eat there for a night. Like once a month go eat there and the owners will probably be happy about it.
Right. I was gonna say the big part behind it is that there has to be some type of incentive to the sponsors as well. I do want to tie back a little bit to what you said previously in regards to coming down to some of the players, not only in regards to how they're treating necessarily sponsorship or sponsorship relationships, but I'm interested in your perspective specifically around the classifications. I mean, that's been a hot topic issue. I feel like it's every year. Every year, that's a hot topic issue of, oh, well, who got reclassed? Who's going to be playing back down? Who got reclassed from C to back to E, or so forth? Or who was a previously potentially even B or C player and took a couple years off and somehow got reclassed back to E, and now there's two or three of them and they're running through E again. So give me a little bit of your perspective behind that.
So for me, I think it starts in E. Obviously, this is not an overnight fix. This is going to take years to level back out.
Mhm.
But it 100% starts in E, and it starts with not letting young players live in E. Obviously, a director can go to a tournament and see maybe this guy belongs in E. He's been here for 7 years. He's 28, but he probably belongs in E.
Mhm.
It's going to take some work for directors, which I understand. I know like kind of what directors get compensated, and it's nothing crazy.
Mhm.
So it would it would take the leagues, the associations, to also invest a little bit as well. But stop letting people live in E. When a young baseball player learns the game, when he starts to learn how to hit the ball, put him in D. Bump him to D. He's not allowed to play E no more.
Mhm.
E doesn't have moves. I think that's stupid.
Mhm.
E shouldn't have moves because E to me is the league ball teams wanting to play tournaments.
Mhm.
E is rec. That's what E should be. I don't care that we have a rec division. That's so stupid. I think E should be rec.
What is the rec division?
I have no
Have you
idea.
seen a single rec tournament?
I didn't see any in Michigan. I know ASA had like F like tournaments on the West Coast or West Side, but
I've never seen a rec team. It's always E.
I think it's more southern for the rec division. But but I think E needs to start having basically a cap once you're to 2 3 years. All right, you belong in D now. You can play the game enough to get by in D,
Mhm.
and then in turn that'll bump all those upper guys, upper D players up to C. Like are so good for that division that they have no business being there, and they could make a difference in C. I understand the argument right now. There's no C teams. That's why it needs to start in E, and it just needs to be a wave. And every year we need to keep bumping these players up to make these like some of the sponsors that are in D2 want to go to C because now it makes sense. We got 10, 12 C teams in Michigan instead of 3 or 2, whatever it is. Um, and I understand that's a reason too why a lot of coaches and sponsors they try to do everything they can to go back down to D as far as Michigan softball
Mhm.
because there's nothing to play in C. We don't have teams. We have tournaments and they end up being CDs, so it's basically
Yeah.
a D tournament with 2 C teams, and ends up being a waste of time for everybody. So
Would you argue that the I guess the talent level when you because one thing I will say I played a few C tournaments. I haven't played a ton of C tournaments. Played a few C tournaments, and I tell you right now, you can tell the difference between C and D. I feel like there is a step gap from D to C.
I
I would say it's not drastic. It's not like E from D. I feel like it's not a huge step. I feel like from D to C there is a little bit a step, especially when you go past some of these teams in in Alabama and Georgia and Texas. You can tell the talent level their their C teams would literally they're solid. They're ready to almost move on to B. Or they're on the fringe.
hmm
Where we have a lot of C teams that may not be up to that level. They get to C, and I mean some of them play down. And we have a lot of solid C teams, but again, you can tell that there is sometimes a talent gap. Would you agree with that or disagree?
I would agree, but mostly because D is so big that like the D and E levels are big. D is so big that those top teams are going to be night and day better than those bottom teams.
Mhm.
Those bottom teams, maybe they could play E. Those top teams could probably play C. So it's really huge gaps as far as when you look at it, like how many players there are, how many teams there are in D. And then when you get to C, there's not as many gaps. There might be some D teams playing C that might not belong. There's probably some B teams playing C that shouldn't be there.
Mhm.
But when you get into like the middle of it, there's not that many C teams, and the gap like within C is smaller than the gap within D.
Okay. Yeah.
So it'd be it's hard to figure out the right process on how to bolster all that. It would literally come down to like a team of guys going to watch these tournaments and be like, all right, Mike is a C player.
Mhm.
Look at how hard he hits the ball. Look at his placement. Look how good he plays defense.
Mhm.
And that's never going to happen. Obviously,
Right.
there's no way that ever happens.
Hmm.
And if we can't get the top D teams though to the top D players rather, I'm sorry,
Hmm.
because even on the top teams, there's some players that don't belong in C on those top
Right.
teams for D,
Right.
but the top players absolutely probably belong in C and could
Hmm.
play and make a difference and hell could probably even play B at one point or are ready for B already, but they're still stuck in D because they want to play with their friends or
Right.
whatever. And I get that, but maybe go play festivals then.
Hmm.
Like if we're gonna do sanctioned events, we need to start focusing on bumping the players. I don't even care if it's just. I don't think it should be just team based. I think it should be player based. But again, like I said, that comes with the director going to a tournament and watching these players.
Right. Do you feel like because we have from the Midwest, at least in the Michigan area, we've got a couple predominant sanctions. Really, you got USSSA, you got One Nation, I think you got NSA. I'd say NSA right now from a ranking aspect. From my personal opinion, One Nation has right now superseded USSSA currently in the state. That's as a current state of affairs. It's just a factor of matter of I feel like in terms of how Jimmy Z is currently running it, and in terms of the number of terms we currently have.
hmm
Doesn't mean it's not going to change, but just where it's currently at. NSA, the way NSA, I guess, classifies or their players specifically with a number, a numeric system. Do you feel that that is the proper way to go, or do you feel like the way One Nation and USSSA handle it is a better way?
So NSA actually got rid of that.
Oh, they did.
They went back to a letter grade this past season.
Really?
Yeah.
I did not know that.
So originally they were letter grade,
Oh, okay.
and then they went to the
I didn't know that.
point system,
Yeah.
and now they went back to a letter grade.
Going toward that letter grade, obviously with certain sanctions now having, or all the sanctions really having that same letter specifications, do you feel that the way it's handled is it because I feel like there's sometimes inconsistencies, especially with depending on how you're marked in NSA compared to One Nation compared to USSSA. Do you feel that they're doing a pretty good job in terms of being all on the same page, or do you feel like there's something they could potentially do a little better?
They're doing awful at that part.
Okay, so tell me about it. Why?
So NSA obviously is their own little entity.
Hmm.
Their website's not user friendly. Like
No.
you probably couldn't figure out what a player's rated if you were paid to try to figure it out with NSA.
Right. I actually did try calling down to figure out what I was, and it's good luck. It's very difficult.
Yeah, it's not easy. Thankfully, I my buddy Jason Cole is avid in NSA. Knows all about their system. So I just reach out to him. I'm like, hey, how do I figure out this or that or this? It's the way I don't think the associations at the lower levels pay attention at all to the other associations. Um, I do know once you start moving up, like now One Nation is taking into account, like, so myself and other players as conference players, they're taking that into account. Like, I'm stuck at, I think, B Elite in One Nation, even though in One Nation I was on a subpar finishing B team for the last 3 seasons. Like, even my Eli Real team in One Nation, we were awful.
Mhm.
Like, we were like 0-2 at Worlds or something like that, and
Okay.
something like, I don't, something bad.
Mhm.
And so if you take that into account on how they've been rating everybody, you'd think, oh well, maybe they'll reclass you to B or
Right.
C Elite if for some players. No, I have not been on a winning B team in One Nation in 3 seasons, and I'm still stuck at B Elite because of what I'm rating in U Trip. But then when you get down to the lower levels, they look a little less at
Mhm.
this guy's D in U Trip, been D for 8 years, but he's E in One Nation, and we're not going to touch him because he hasn't been on a winning team. He's whatever because of his One Nation record.
Right.
So it's if they don't know you, they don't seem to care.
No.
But as soon as your name starts to move around when you get to the upper levels, that's when they start focusing, which is fine. Like
Mhm.
obviously guys like me, other guys in Michigan shouldn't be playing C One Nation,
Right.
which is what was happening for the last few years.
Mhm.
But it's easier for them to focus on the few upper level players than it is on the hundreds
Okay.
of lower level players.
Well, I mean, as I say, just pure volume,
Yeah,
right? I mean, you have a lot more players in those divisions, so I can understand you're not gonna have the manpower to be able
right.
to be able to be meticulous on each player. It just feels though the inconsistency, and it feels like it's also sometimes inconsistent for similar teams that are in the similar positions frequently, and I'm not understanding how we're not able to see the pattern of how this player is consistently in this same. Oh, he was on this successful team, and oh, this team won Worlds this year. Oh, this team came second in Worlds the following year, and it's all the same division. What the heck are we doing? So I guess I'm trying to understand how that mentality from that piece. And I don't know if you're getting any other insight from you when playing the upper level, or is it the same perspective from the upper level that you guys are seeing? Not necessarily in the upper level that you're seeing the same thing, but the same thing you guys are seeing in the lower division and how they're being handled.
That's it's hard to compare that situation to upper level because like when you think about upper level, you think of conference, and you could have a guy playing major one year and then he's on an A team or even a B team the next year at as far as conference because they use a point system. And not like NSA though. It's if you're on the major list, you're so many points. If you're on the major watch list, you're so many points. If you're not on any of that, you're 0 points.
Mhm.
So you could have been on a major team, had a iffy year, not make the major watch list, and be 0 points. So technically, a B team could pick you up as a major player the year previous. So it's very different as far as that's concerned. Um, I don't really know. I'm not gonna lie, I don't super know what's going on as far as that aspect in the like the lower levels.
Mm.
I hear about it. I know how it went back in our day,
Right.
and
Well, I mean, it's something that it's kind of crazy to think about that it's not like an issue that just came overnight. I feel like this is something that has been talked about for years, and we just can't get it right. But hopefully, I do have hopes, especially with more consistent directors, that we'll see that little bit change. I would argue that, and I give him all the shout outs and kudos. Jimmy Z has actually handled One Nation phenomenally. And I'm really happy with where the state is going overall as One Nation. Unfortunately, though, when you go into like southern states and like outside of the Midwest, they don't even know what the heck One Nation is. So I mean, it's not like a matter of yes, that's great for this local sanction. I like to see it also be all successful in the UCCC and the national side too. But well, I mean, it is what it is. There's only so much we have to control over,
Right.
and it is figure it out from, I guess, from there. Okay, so if I'm a player that I'm looking to try to get to that next level, I'm playing in D, E, and I want to move on up. I want to be able to play C. I want to play, see what my skills can really take me. What would you recommend to that player to do? What would you tell that, from advice to get to that level and how to get that exposure? Because I know that's going to be a big piece of it too.
It's always a fun question because it's not all skill anymore. Um, there's a lot of socializing that comes into play, a lot of a lot of who you know, and that's the unfortunate side of it. But if you take that away, you still need to be able to play the game. The reason I got my shot back in like 2016, my first shot in the conference was like 2016 for a B team, was because I busted my ass all the time at league ball, at dome ball. I was running every ground ball out. I was busting after foul balls when I was a left fielder. Um, I never gave up on plays. I was hustling, and I was grateful at that time. Shannon Green was actually the one who got me my first shot,
Mhm.
and it was the main factor was my hustle because I wasn't a phenomenal player.
Mhm.
There was better hitters than me that probably could have made that opportunity more back and then.
Mhm.
Um, but hustling was the biggest factor that got me my first shot, and and then after that, it's obviously you have to know how to play the game. You have to be able to hit all fields, even if you're predominantly a pull, predominantly push. You have to be able to hit all fields. You have to be able to play a position now.
Mhm.
Like there's great EHs, but they all even all the coaches and sponsors now want these young EHs to have a position because they can find EHs. There's so many EHs that can't play a position but can whack a softball. So they want you to, if you're a 750 hitter, 700 hitter, they want you to figure out how to play a position because then they can, especially because there's so many young EHs that
Mhm.
we have in the game right now that I don't know how they got to where they're at without really playing a position.
And it's actually a point that you just said, especially like hitting like 700 or 750. Yeah, that sounds great. And some E players will say, "Oh, well, I hit 700 all the time. I 750." Is it truly 700, 750, or is it 700, 750? Because and I'm not even talking about like oh well, you're hitting against lower level teams, but like solid hits that are not unplayable and that cannot be fielded and will get through no matter what, hitting 700, 750. I feel like there's a different level or different scale when you get to higher levels compared to when you're scaling yourself in E. And sometimes it puts a construed mind to some of the lower level players that think like, oh, I'm hitting 700, I'm hitting 800. Are you really hitting that? I don't think you're really hitting that.
The defense is so much better at the upper levels, like because most of the infielders and the top level outfielders are all ex pros or ex D1 athletes, like the
Mhm.
ex D1 ball players. Um, that they're not gonna you're not gonna get a blooper by them.
Mhm.
Like the ground ball you missed that will be a hit against an E player. Jojo Bennett is diving, grabbing this ball and still throwing you out at first base while he's 100 feet into the outfield because we're playing with stadiums and
Mhm.
it's ridiculous. Like you could hit a ball on the screws and think, yeah, I got that one, and then there's a defender out of nowhere catching the ball or backhanding a ground ball and throwing you out at first. You're like, oh, well, back to the drawing board. It is such a different game defensively. The pitching makes a difference.
Mhm.
It's still underhand in the end. The defense, though, is absolutely insane when you compare it to an E team against just even a A or B team. We don't even go to major. A or B versus E, just defense. It's insane the difference.
So 2025 season coming up, upcoming. You are well, you're playing with who in the upcoming year?
I am playing with the team I actually ended the season with, Eli Real.
Okay.
We merged with Legends out of Texas, and so half of us and half of them. I have no idea what the name of our team is going to be yet.
Fair
The-
enough.
but it's the core of Eli and the core of Legends, and we're going to A, and we're gonna try to win a A ring now after coming off our B ring.
Awesome. And what would you say? You get the ability to be able to travel around and play some of the nicer parks in the country. What is one that's like a highlight? Like, okay, that's a place I absolutely really love playing at. That's a place I'm looking forward to playing at.
I actually really liked playing in Kansas this year.
Ah,
Kansas was my first time ever being there, my first time playing
mhm.
there. It's a beautiful park. They just redid it. It's all turf. All the concrete's new, the fencing's new. Like it's actually it's beautiful. I if I if if I had to put my finger on one park to go play it again, it would probably be Kansas. And the drive out there was really fun. Like
Sweet.
I I drive to a lot of the if it's under like 10, 12 hours, I'll
Mhm.
drive just to save money for our sponsors. And just to drive out there, all the open plains and everything, that was pretty fun.
Awesome. Well, best of luck to you. I will say. I mean, I wish you all the luck in the world, and also healthy. Staying healthy is usually the biggest key.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much for joining us. I truly
Absolutely.
appreciate it, man. Thank you so much.
Thanks for having me.
And that's going to conclude our interview with Kyle here. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. Just a big reminder, if you're looking for sports apparel needs, visit Brotherhood Sports. Trevor and the reps team will be able to take care of you. Again, thank you guys so much for tuning in. Here's the Batters Box from presented by Off the Bench. We got hopefully more interviews and more series to come out to you as soon as possible. If you guys do like this type of content, go ahead and smash that like and subscribe button. It helps us a ton. We truly appreciate it. Until next time, this is Shot Mikes. I'll see you guys next time.